Don't forget to hit that like button so you won't miss episode 33, where love and resilience speak through every small gesture, as Tuttienne finds strength at the farm and Jack faces important decisions at work. A wave of emotion you won't want to miss. It was still early morning at the company. The office barely had any sunlight filtering in, yet Tuttienne was already there. Quietly, she moved from corner to corner, wiping dust off the meeting table, straightening each folder on the shelves with care. Her hands, once used to farm work, were slowly learning the rhythm of office life, still a bit clumsy but full of determination. To her, this wasn't just a job, it was proof that she was carving out a new path for herself, using her own strength. But not everyone saw it that way. Soan, the secretary, known for her pride and sharp tongue, walked into the office, heels clicking on the floor, eyes cold as glass. Without so much as a greeting, she passed Tuttienne like she didn't exist, then immediately started nitpicking, the faint ink stain still left on the table, the direction of a water glass slightly off. Her sarcastic remarks and unnecessary orders poured down like cold water. Tuttienne lowered her eyes, hiding the sting behind a quiet expression, swallowing the sadness without letting it show. Thankfully, amidst the judging stares, someone saw her differently. It was Jiang, the new colleague. She approached Tuttienne with a kind smile. "Hang in there, sis. Everyone has a rough start. If you need anything, just ask me." That simple sentence felt like the morning sun peeking through the clouds. Soft, unexpected, but warm enough to keep going. Tuttienne nodded slightly, smiling in quiet gratitude. Cut to another scene. At a nearby construction site, Tien's ex-husband was also at work, but his image was a far cry from hers. His shirt was untucked, sleeves rolled sloppily, eyes darting around looking for a way to skip work. Instead of lifting bricks or carrying cement like the others, he was off chatting, smoking, ignoring the messy piles of materials around him. After getting called out by the supervisor multiple times, he finally dragged himself back to work, face sour, steps dragging. But before he could do much, a group of unfamiliar young men showed up. Dressed in flashy clothes and tough looks, they stormed straight up to Chien, loudly demanding he pay back what he owed, in front of all the workers. The scene turned chaotic. Eyes turned toward Chien, who now fumbled with excuses. "Guys, give me a break. I'm just short right now. Let me go to the company and get an advance. I'll pay you right after." Sweat beaded on his forehead as he tried to stay calm, but his eyes were clearly panicked. Under the silent threat from the gang, he had no choice but to leave the site and rush toward the company, carrying with him a quiet storm about to hit the office where Tuttienne was working. Back at the office, Tuttienne continued quietly doing her job. She swept the hallway, pausing to politely greet co-workers as they passed by. Most barely nodded back, some didn't even look her way. But she stayed respectful, humble, and refused to let their indifference weigh her down. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared at the front desk. It was Chien. He looked disheveled, with that same sly, tired look on his face. After getting an advance from Hoai, the secretary, he happened to glance down the hallway, and there she was, Tuttienne, crouched low, wiping the floor. At first, his face registered surprise, then disbelief, then anger. He couldn't believe it. The woman he once cast aside was now working as a janitor at some fancy company. Neatly dressed, confident, and somehow, she looked happy. He stormed over, his voice dripping with mockery. "So this is what you left me for? Thought you'd be a director or something, not cleaning tables and floors. Come back to me, stop making a fool of yourself." Tuttienne froze. Her face went pale. She took a step back, voice trembling. "I have nothing to do with you anymore." Chien stepped closer and grabbed her arm. Startled, she pulled away, her movements quick and panicked. The scuffle drew the attention of nearby employees, who started whispering and watching. Just then, Jack appeared. He didn't ask questions. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stepped between them, his eyes icy cold. "She's my girlfriend, don't ever touch her again." Chien clenched his fists, ready to fire back, but Jack didn't flinch. With a firm motion, he gestured to security to escort him out. As Chien was dragged away, some co-workers nearby couldn't help but whisper, "So, the janitor's dating the boss?" "Yes, all you need is the right connection." Tuttienne looked down, her hands trembling slightly as she clenched them together. But then Jack gently placed a hand on her shoulder. He turned to the room, his voice calm, unwavering. "I don't care about her past. All I know is that right now she's someone I deeply care about, and I'll protect her, no matter what." The room went quiet. Some still stared, some still judged, but Ly Tu Tien slowly looked up at Jack. Her eyes shimmered, not with fear, but with something stronger. For the first time, she stood tall in front of everyone, knowing she wasn't alone anymore. After everything that happened at the company, Tuttienne quietly walked back along the familiar village path. Her slender figure in a simple striped shirt faded in and out between the trees. The afternoon breeze brushed past, but instead of cooling her down, it stirred up old wounds inside, ones she thought had long been buried. It wasn't just the gossip from her co-workers or the stares that followed her all morning. It was Chien. His sudden reappearance, the way he grabbed her, the words he threw like stones. It brought back everything she had tried so hard to leave behind. By the time she reached the small farmhouse, she was exhausted. She removed her scarf and sat quietly by the porch. Her eyes wandered far off, her fingers nervously brushing the edge of the old bench cushion. Memories came flooding back, of being treated like property, discarded, humiliated, and now again, in front of strangers. Then came the sound of an engine outside the gate. Jack. He stepped into the yard without saying much, just walked over and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" Ly Tu Tien forced a smile, her voice low. "I'm used to it. People can say whatever they want." Jack sat down beside her, worry clear in his eyes. "From now on, you're not alone anymore. You and I, no one has the right to touch that. I won't let anyone hurt you." She lowered her head, holding back tears. Even though Jack had a mountain of work, negotiating highway project bids, signing new contracts, he still made time to stop by, just to check in, just to make sure she knew she mattered. Before he left, his mom had called, asking him to go with her to visit a sick neighbor at the hospital. Jack gave her a warm, lingering hug. "I'll be back soon. Make sure you eat something and do a little studying, okay?" Tuttienne watched him disappear down the trail. Then, heading inside, she pulled out a few eggs, some leftover rice, and a bit of pickled greens. In the glow of the kitchen light, she whipped up a simple fried rice dish, quiet, comforting. Later that evening, she sat down at her desk, opened her notebook, and began to write. The scratching of her pen echoed softly under the lamp's warm glow. Page by page, she wasn't just learning letters, she was rewriting her life, one line at a time. Morning sunlight poured gently across the sugarcane garden. Tuttienne moved carefully through the rows, removing the withered stalks. Her hands moved fast and sure, but her thoughts were far away. Jack's smile, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, it had all become something she couldn't ignore, and it scared her. Could someone like her, someone who had been abandoned, hurt, and made to feel worthless, ever be truly worthy of the kind of love Jack was offering? At that same moment, in a quiet home across town, Jiang sat in silence. She was struggling with her own feelings. Her affection for Jack wasn't new, but the thought of confessing it froze her in place. What if he didn't feel the same? What if it ruined the good working relationship they already had? What if... He started seeing her differently. Jiang's mother had just returned from collecting debts. Noticing the distant look in her daughter's eyes, her instincts kicked in. She knew Jack was on her daughter's mind again. Without hesitation, she encouraged Jiang to make the first move. "You're smart, beautiful, capable. Jack would be lucky to have you. Don't wait too long." She reminded Jiang of her close friendship with Jack's mother, Mrs. Loy, and how she had always hoped their families could become one. As soon as Jiang left the house, her mother picked up the phone and called Duc, a guy she had hired to keep an eye on Jack. Her voice was sharp and determined as she urged him to hurry up and find out more about the girl Jack had brought home. Meanwhile, at Jack's home, the smell of noodles filled the kitchen. Jack sat at the table, enjoying the hot bowl his mum had cooked for him. "This is so good," he smiled. Mrs. Loy took the chance to gently steer the conversation toward his love life. "Why don't you take Tuttienne on a little getaway? Maybe the mountain resort I told you about? Waterfalls, tea hills, pine forests? It'll be good for her." She pulled out her phone and eagerly flipped through pictures. Jack nodded, half smiling. "Yeah, I'll go see her after this." On his way, he stopped at a small roadside cafe, Baby Coffee, and bought 2 icy yogurt drinks, one for him, one for Tuttienne. Back at the farm, Tuttienne was busy tidying up when she heard the sound of a motorbike outside. She opened the door to find Jack standing there, smiling, holding a bag of cold drinks. She thanked him shyly. She had been planning to take some lily flowers to the market, but it was already late. Instead, she told him she'd head into the forest to collect wild bananas. Jack immediately offered to go with her. "Have you ever tried lily flower soup?" she asked, glancing back as they walked. Jack shook his head. "Nope. But, maybe, next time, you can cook it for me?" Tuttienne grinned, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Back in my hometown, everyone loves it. I'll make it for you." They walked together, chatting and laughing, leaving behind the heat of the afternoon and all the complicated schemes of others. For now, they were just 2 people, savoring the simple peace of being side by side. After chatting and cooling off with their drinks, Jack and Tuttienne stepped into the yard to feed leftover rice to the dogs. The scene was simple. Dogs wagging their tails, bowls clinking, laughter echoing softly in the air. It felt like a family. Quiet, humble, but real. Getting ready for their hike into the forest, Jack rolled up his sleeves and swapped into a fresh white shirt. He laced up his boots and grabbed the forest knife Tuttienne had reminded him not to forget. She led the way, Jack followed close behind. They stepped into the mossy trail, where dry leaves crackled beneath their feet and birds called in the distance. The air smelled of earth and sun. Climbing gently sloped hills, they searched for clusters of wild bananas. Tuttienne moved easily through the terrain, clearly familiar with every rock and bend. Jack, not so much. He stumbled here and there, trying to avoid brambles and low-hanging branches. At one point, they stopped on a rocky outcrop that overlooked a trickling stream below. The breeze was cool, the sky crystal clear. Jack started sharing a story from his childhood, about how his grandfather used to take him into the forest to gather medicinal herbs. His voice was soft, eyes far away with emotion. Tuttienne listened without interrupting. For a moment it felt like she had always been there, in those memories, in that life. As they climbed across a slippery patch of stone, Jack suddenly lost his footing and fell forward, straight into Tuttienne. They nearly toppled over. In that moment, his hand brushing hers, their eyes meeting, both frozen. The silence felt heavier than words. Tuttienne's cheeks flushed. Jack scrambled back up, rubbing the back of his neck, clearly flustered. Hey, have you ever cooked banana flour with fish? I heard it's really good." Tuttienne smiled shyly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, I have. I'll cook it for you sometime." The tension faded. They kept walking, laughing again, eventually resting under a tall, shady tree. Jack looked off into the distance. Then, without turning to face her, he spoke. His voice had changed. Low, serious, almost trembling. "I don't know when it started, but I've liked you for a while now. Every time I see you, it feels like everything else becomes a little easier. I'm not hoping for anything fancy. I just want you to be happy, even if it's not with me." Tuttienne didn't say anything. She looked down at the grass in her hands, twirling a blade between her fingers. Her eyes shimmered, a single tear clinging to the corner. Was it gratitude? Was it something deeper? In the distance, the sun began dipping behind the hills. The forest breeze blew softly through the trees, and in that stillness, 2 hearts quietly reached for each other, tender, uncertain, but full of hope.
Bật khóc trước mặt những kẻ chẳng chút thương xót cô. Chiếu, người từng đỏ tay gối với cô, người từng hứa hẹn bao điều giờ đây lại lạnh lùng đứng nhìn không một chút do dự. Cô đã không còn gì trong ánh mắt anh ta. Nỗi đau không còn dừng lại ở những lời miệt thị khi mẹ chồng lớn tiếng đuổi cô ra khỏi nhà. Tự tin gần như quỵ xuống, cô không biết mình đã làm gì sai ngoài việc sinh ra trong một số phận bất hạnh. Ngày cô về nhà chồng, cô cũng từng e thẹn bước qua bậc cửa này mang theo bao ước mơ về một mái ấm. Nhưng hôm nay cũng chính bậc cửa đó cô phải rời đi trong tủi nhục, trong sự lạnh lùng của người chồng. Trong ánh mắt khinh bỉ của cả gia đình chồng, cô muốn phản kháng, muốn hỏi Chiến rằng anh ta còn chút tình nghĩa nào dành cho cô không. Nhưng rồi cô nhận ra điều đó chẳng còn quan trọng nữa. Cô chỉ là một món đồ bị vứt đi, bị thay thế bởi một người khác. Từ Tiên bước ra khỏi căn nhà đã từng là tổ ấm của mình. Bước chân cô nặng nề như có ai đó trói chặt. Trời không mưa nhưng lòng cô bão tố. Những giọt nước mắt mặn chát lên